Massachusetts is known as the cradle of the American Revolution, Red Sox baseball, Boston, and Cape Cod. But the Bay State is also home to deep forests, wild rivers, natural wonders, and forgotten histories. Despite this, the central interior and the western mountains are drive-through country for many. My name is Bob Tremblay, and I grew up in the highlands of central Massachusetts. I've spent my life exploring the back roads and remote trails of the state. I work as a professional outdoor educator and wilderness guide, and have led thousands of people on outdoor adventures throughout New England. Join us as we head off the beaten path and visit the wild landscapes, remote places, hidden gems, and high summits of the wilds of Massachusetts. This is Bay State Backcountry. All right, good morning. This is Bob Tremblay. Welcome to another episode of Bay State Backcountry, and I'm really excited for what we have in store today. So as I speak to you now, it's mid-February, and we have had a really unusual winter here in New England. In the last 10 days, we've had both record warmth and record cold. Right now, we're kind of getting through our record cold. Last night, it got down to -19, and as I speak to you right now, it's probably about 1 degree. And anyway, I'm here at the foot of Mount Toby because got a real treat today. I'm gonna hike into the woods, and I have my climbing rope. I'm gonna rappel down into a bat hibernaculum. And so what's that? It's a bat cave. And this is where the little brown bats are hibernating through the winter, because during this time of year, they don't have any food, there's no mosquitoes. And so they hibernate for anywhere from 6 to 7 months. So I'm gonna rappel down underground and see how the bats are faring and how they're hibernating through this very unusual winter. So I've got my gear and my backpack, I've got my helmet, I've got my climbing rope here, and I'm gonna hike into this little known cave. So come along and join me, and I'll see you soon. All right, so I've hiked about a mile into the woods, and I am right by the cave entrance. And what's so interesting about this cave isn't just the fact that the bats are here, but also is just the fact that this cave is here. And I just love the story that this stone tells us. So this rock right here, as you can see, this is the formation that our cave is in. Now, Massachusetts doesn't really have the kind of geology for proper limestone caves, and this isn't a limestone cave either, but what it is this stone you can see behind me this is conglomerate, and what you can see is it's all a mishmash of boulders and cobblestones and sediment that's all been kind of compressed together by weight and by time. And so all of this at one time was sediment. This was mud and soft kind of deposits. And specifically what this deposit was laid down by was after the last major ice age, when the glaciers retreated and melted, and all that runoff was kind of coming down from the glacier's edge, is this whole valley of Massachusetts was underwater. And we call that lake, we call it Lake Hitchcock. And this was all the muddy sediment of Lake Hitchcock. Lake Hitchcock has since dried up and is gone, but it's left behind this sediment, this compressed sediment. Now this rock is breaking apart, and the crevasses and the cracks as this rock breaks apart is what's creating the space, the cave, that the bats are using for their hibernaculum. So I'm going to head over here to the entrance and rappel down into the cave to see our bats. Oh, so this is really exciting. Is the temperature out here right now is probably down in the low single digits. It's very, very cold. And what's so exciting here is we found, you can see that the cave is literally breathing. And so this moisture right here, this crack here in the cave, going down to the cave entrance, and we can see this breath of the cave coming out. It's coming out in the atmosphere just like my breath is, and it's freezing on this rock. The hoarfrost of the breath of the cave is on here. And this is a great example as to why the bats are here. Because as cold as it is out here, it's warmer in the cave. It's an ideal shelter for little animals that are trying to survive the harshest season of the year. And they're in there exactly because of this reason, is that it's warmer inside the cave than it is outside. And we see evidence of it right here with the breath and with this hoarfrost. Very, very exciting. I'm looking forward to getting down there and seeing the bats. All right, so here's the entrance to the cave. As you can see, it's just a little slot in the earth, drops down here about 55 feet. I've always called this entrance the toaster slot because that's basically what you feel like as you're going down, as you feel like a toaster. So the bats are able to fly down here to navigate all the way down this slot and then into their hibernaculum, which is down there. I don't have the wings, but I have the rope. So I'm going to be heading up here, set up my climbing rope, throw my rope down, and I'm going to rappel down underground along the conglomerate walls of the former Lake Hitchcock to see the hibernating little brown bats. Pretty exciting stuff. So I'm going to head up and set up my rope. All right, I've got a nice solid tree here that I'm going to be using as my anchor point. Get my rappel rope set up. Don't try this at home, but tying what's known as a floating bowline knot, if you want to Google it. But this is going to, there we go, attach my rope. And I'm going to be throwing it down the toaster slot. Okay, I've got my rope set, I've got my harness on. I'm just about ready for full rappel mode. First thing I'll need is my helmet. So, standard rock climbing helmet. And then what I also have, which I probably won't use until I get down inside, I have my headlamp right inside my pocket here. And now I will get up my figure 8 descender. Attached to the rope, attached to my carabiner, attached to my harness, and I am ready to go down into the world of the bats. So, off I go. I can feel it's warmer already. It starts to get squeezed around the 25-foot mark here. All right. It's very narrow here. There we go. Now it's safe and sound. So I've just come down the toaster slot, And here at the bottom of the toaster slot, beneath me here is the conglomerate wall of Lake Hitchcock. And now it goes down a little bit deeper. I'm going to have to duck down and go into this hidden recess. I call this the bat cave. And this is the area where the bats are hibernating. So before I do that, it's nice I have the camera lights here, but I'm going to need my helmet light. And I am going to slide underneath and see the bats. So don't want to disturb them. I'm going to try to be as quiet as I can. Get down. Oh, I won't need my backpack. It's kind of a tight squeeze to get in, but once I'm in there, it's a nice little chamber. And heading down, bat cave. See you soon. All right, so here I am inside of the bat cave. And right here, I have 3 little brown bats. And when I say they're little brown bats, they are indeed little and brown, but they are, their species name is they're little brown bats. And I'm being kind of quiet right now because I don't want to disturb them. The reason they're in this cave is that bats eat mosquitoes. And here in mid-February, there are no mosquitoes. So the mosquitoes have been gone really since probably mid-November, and there won't be any more until May. And so the bats don't have any food during that entire time. So they need to hibernate to conserve their energy because they're not going to have another meal for several months yet. So they're actually really good hibernators. Their heart rate slows down to 20 beats a minute. And when it's cold like this, and I'm sure is the case right now, is they can actually go without breathing for 48 minutes at a time. They're doing everything they can to slow down their metabolism. I don't want to disturb them because if I disturb them and they have to use any energy to move or to fidget or to rewarm themselves, that's energy they can't afford to lose. The 3 of them are sleeping together in a tight, compact ball, sharing their heat, doing everything they can to conserve all of their resources as they endure and wait out this winter. So here they are, really pretty neat. One of the things I love about these bats, a lot of people think bats are scary and are mean, but these little animals provide a really valuable eco-service for us all. A single little brown bat can eat 1,000 mosquitoes an hour. And these bats, believe it or not, can live for 40 years. So if you think of 40 years flying around during the summer for probably 7 or 8 hours a night, eating 1,000 mosquitoes every hour, they really do us a great service of controlling the mosquito population. And especially now with West Nile virus, malaria, triple E, the equine encephalitis virus, and now Zika, these animals are here and ready to perform that service for us at no charge. So these are really very valuable little animals. The sad thing is the little brown bat, their population has been reduced about 90% in the last several years. There's a fungus that's going around, and this fungus spreads when the bats are hibernating because they sleep so close together. And when a bat has the white nose fungus, and they're huddled like this, they spread it through contact. And the white nose fungus is so called because they actually get this white fungal growth around their nose and their mouth that eventually spreads to their ears and their entire body, and they're just covered with white. And so I've been coming in this cave for several years, and it's used to be you'd come in here and in the winter, a day like this, I might see 10 or 15. I'm happy to see 3, and I'm happy to see 3 that are very healthy and have no sign of the fungus. So good news, good news. I'm glad to see that they're making it through. This is actually my 3rd time this winter coming in and checking on them. So little brown bats, very important little animals for our ecosystem. Oh, this is really exciting. I was just under closer examination looking at the bats and watching them kind of huddle and keeping each other warm. I realized there's actually 4. What I originally thought were 3 is there's actually 4 bats there. And they're all just as such a tight mass, it was just hard to distinguish, but once we kind of counted the ears and the limbs and the noses, we realized there's actually 4. So That's really good news. The more the better. These poor bats have been so decimated by this virus that every single one that's living and healthy is a good sign. So hopefully these 4 have some sort of natural resistance to the virus, and we'll be able to perpetuate that through the species, and that we'll see a good recovery, and we'll see more bats and less mosquitoes. So I'm rooting for them. Very glad to see them. Well, the news just gets better and better. Upon even closer examination, the 4 bats just became 5. So what we originally thought were 3 and then thought were 4 are now actually 5 bats. So that is really good news. Again, just the more the better. So I'm sure there are probably dozens of other bats in some of these crevasses and nooks where we just can't fit. So I'm sure my voice must just sound like a booming, booming echo to them. So I'm going to leave them to their hibernation and leave their bat cave, leave them undisturbed, and head out. All right, well, as inhospitable a place as a cave like this can look to us, this is an ideal place for the bats to overwinter. If you look at it through the viewpoint of a bat, this cave is a completely stable environment. Not only does it have no light, it has no wind, it has no rain, it has no sun. It's basically almost like a time capsule. It's like a place out of sync with the rest of the world. It's constant, it's stable. And so for the bats, it's an ideal place for them to be, where they're safe from predators, they're safe from threats, they're safe from the weather, they're basically safe from everything. Who else in their right mind would want to come down underground and spend the winter here? So for the bats, it's ideal. But for us, it isn't. And so I am going to head out, and here's my rope going up the toaster slot that I came down. And I hate to disappoint you, but I'm not going to climb up this rope to get out. Fortunately, there is another exit. This other exit allows me to walk out. The one challenge of the exit is there's one very narrow passage that kind of squeezes in the walls. And you got to kind of hold your breath and wiggle your way through. And that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to head out the other exit. All this time underground, and it started to snow. So here I am coming out of the cave and coming out to a snowstorm, which is beautiful. Just goes to show how when you're in the cave, there's no weather, which is if you're a bat, that's what you want. But beautiful, beautiful day. So I've got this beautiful snowstorm for my hike out of here. Just a beautiful way to kind of close a great day. And as I kind of think of the bats, I'm so excited about seeing the 5 bats in there, all healthy, all white-nosed, fungus-free, comfortable in their little hibernaculum, keeping each other warm, waiting for the spring. I just want to talk about just how important bats are. They really do a very valuable service for us. And so all the scare that people have about all the mosquito-borne diseases, if you don't want to see those things spread into the human population, really support the bats. And another little tidbit a lot of people don't know is bats are more closely related to us than they are to rats and rodents. Believe it or not, bats are more closely related to primates like us, specifically to primates like lemurs. And so we have more in common with them than sometimes I think we'd like to think. But anyway, you might notice, kind of on the side, these orange blazes on this tree right next to me is as I hike out for my return back home, is I am on the Robert Frost Trail. So this is another one of many long distance hiking trails that we have here in Massachusetts. Previous episode of Bay State Backcountry, I talked about the Monusnog Ridge Trail. Maybe we'll do one on the Robert Frost Trail sometime. But for now, until the next episode of Bay State Backcountry, this is where I leave you. So I'll say goodbye, and remember, any excuse to be outside is a good excuse. And I'll see you later, next time. I think there's three. I need my
It looks like
on.
3.
Yeah.
I see.
Oh,
3.
okay, there's it.
Alright.
It's interesting as I put my hand right here,
It's warm.
I can actually feel a little bit of heat.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if it's coming off of them
It's crazy how warm it is in here.
comparatively.
Yeah, exactly.